welcome to Woman Enough for Marriage. My name is Wumi Ajayi. Thank you so much for joining me again on my YouTube channel. Today, I want to start a series on communication. That's why I've titled it The Big C of Communication, because every married couple at one time or the other would have had, messages or counseling or what have you on the importance of communication. But when we look at it, communication is actually an area where a lot of us married couples struggle. And usually, when there's a breakdown of communication, then there's a breakdown of the relationship. And a lot of marriages have ended purely because couples struggle to communicate. And so, when we're talking about the importance of communication, it's because we know that without communication, there is no relationship. It's because communication is the bedrock of any relationship. And the quality of the communication in any relationship is actually directly proportional to the quality of that relationship. So in marriage, the quality of the communication that you share with your spouse actually is directly proportional to the quality of the relationship that we have. When we enjoy good and effective communication in our relationships, especially in marriage, it brings a greater depth of intimacy, a greater depth of friendship and connection. And it means that we understand each other better. We enjoy our relationships better. This is why the school of communication is not a school that any of us will graduate from. We all need to continue to develop and improve on our communication skills so that we can enjoy our marriages better. James 3:2 says, we all stumble in many ways. Anyone who is never at fault in what they say is perfect, able to keep their whole body in check. And so, if we all still stumble, we all still stumble. We say the right, we say the wrong things at the wrong time, or we say the right thing at the wrong time. We stumble in the way we communicate verbally and non-verbally. And so, we all need to continue to improve on how we communicate. As long as we're not perfect yet, we need to continue to improve. There are many definitions for communication. I mean, if I ask any one of us, we can easily, dish out a definition. But communication is basically imparting or exchanging information by speaking, writing, or any other medium, verbal and non-verbal. It's the means by which we successfully convey or share our ideas and feelings. And if we look at the root word for communication, it means to share, to make common, to be in relationship with, to commune, to share our inner experiences, our wants, our needs, our feelings, our perceptions with another person, to make common the knowledge that we have, the ideas that we have, our opinions, our feelings, to make common. Because unless we share, unless we communicate, our spouses are not mind readers. So unless we actually communicate our feelings, our needs, our wants, our ideas, our opinions, they have no way of knowing. And that's why it's important that we get better at how we communicate. It also means to commune. And the most important communication that we can have with another human is a soul to soul, heart to heart communication, similar to what we do when we pray to God. And as married couples, we should get better. We should be very good actually at doing this. To commune is to get very close to someone or something by exchanging our feelings and our thoughts. It's to work together with profound intimacy and intensity. It's to be intimate in communication. So, this is the kind of communication that we should enjoy as married couples. But unfortunately, we find out that this is not the case for most of us. We need to learn to communicate properly, to communicate effectively, so that we can have a secure relationship. There are different levels of communication. In fact, we are constantly communicating, even when we're not talking. Even silence communicates. We're constantly, as long as we are in the presence of another human, we are constantly communicating. We use words, we use non-verbal communication, we use, all sorts to communicate. The chit chat level of communication or conversation is the most superficial level. The kind of communication that, you're talking about the weather, talking about things that are not necessarily important. It is safe level. It's the level where you ask somebody, how are you? Not because you want them to tell you how they are, but because, you're just making conversation and then they say, I'm fine, even when they're not fine. There's also the fact level, where we're just sharing fact, pure fact. It's not influenced by our opinions or anything. It's just basic information that we're sharing. The opinion level is where we start to make sense of the fact. We're talking about what the fact means to us. In other words, we're sharing our opinion. The emotional level is the level where we're able to connect with another person emotionally. Emotions are shared. We talk about our feelings, we talk about, our needs. And this level requires a level of trust and vulnerability. That's why we don't connect with everyone emotionally, because you can't be vulnerable with everyone. It's the level where the Bible expects us, as married couples, to be naked and unashamed. It's the level where we're able to talk about anything and everything, say how we're feeling to our spouses, express our needs, express, our emotions, be it anger, frustration, happiness, whatever it is. It's the deeper level where we actually get to know the real person. It's true, it's deep, it's honest, it's vulnerable, it's heart to heart. It is the level where we become emotionally accessible to our spouses. It's the level where we become attuned and responsive to each other's needs and feelings. It is through honest and vulnerable communication, as well as empathy and compassion, that we can reach the deepest level of love. The level of love, intimacy, secure emotional connection that we are all longing for. But unfortunately, again, not many of us are very good at communicating at this level, which is why we need to keep practicing, we need to keep learning, we need to keep making effort. It's true that when we stay at the chit chat level, opinion level, fact level, it feels safe because the level of emotion is vulnerable. But it's a higher calling, and that is the level at which we should be as married couples. Now, talking about how to improve our communication skills as couples, I feel, actually, how do you know how to improve on something if you actually don't know what you're doing wrong? And that's why I want to talk about communication styles, first of all, because for us to improve our communication skills, we need to actually become aware of how we communicate and what we're doing wrong and how we can improve on them. There are many styles that we adopt when it comes to communication, and sometimes it's by default, our personality, male and female, our upbringing, our environment. Somebody that is brought up in an environment where people are always shouting and wanting to make themselves known, might by default think that that's the best way to make yourself heard, by shouting and screaming. And another person brought up in a home where they're shouting and screaming might go into their shell because they hated the shouting and screaming. When they get into their own relationship, their default might be that they just want to accommodate, they don't want trouble, they don't want confrontation. And so they when it comes to communicating, they're always letting the other person have their way. So the model I'm going to looks at, communication through two dimensions. We have the dimension of assertiveness, which is basically the concern for yourself, and the dimension of empathy, which is the concern for the relationship. So we communicate based on concern for ourselves or concern for the relationship. Basically, it reflects how selfish we are or how caring we are. So when we're talking about concern for self, a spouse who is more concerned about themselves, they're more concerned about their needs, their interests. They're good at taking care of their own needs and standing up for their rights and for their point of view and what they believe in. And when we're talking about concern for the relationship, this person has the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. They are sensitive, they are tender, they are considerate. So a spouse that is high on empathy is sensitive to the needs, opinions, and feelings of their spouse. And even though each of us will have a tendency to, communicate more out of concern for self or more out of concern for relationship, as we see when we start looking at the self, we can actually say that we each one of us can fall along the line of the two different dimensions. So when we combine these two dimensions, we actually, there are four different communication styles that we can have. And it might be sometimes difficult to actually identify one style of communication when it's normal communication, day-to-day communication, and everything is going on smoothly. But in times of conflict, it's actually easier to identify how we communicate. Now, the first style of communication is the dominators. So the dominators are people that are high on assertiveness and very low on empathy. They are people that they want to assert their own needs and opinions. They express themselves openly. They seek what they want. And because they are high on assertiveness and low on empathy, they have less regard for how their opinions might affect other people. During conflict, they are the people that they will defend, they will argue, they will lecture, they will blame just to, make their points, or make their points, assert their points. They sometimes will even attack their spouses. They don't like to be wrong. They don't like to lose. They want to convince you. They want to control the other person. They want to coerce the other person into thinking or doing what they want or actually believing what they want. There are people that it's either their way or the highway. They are always right. They think they always know better. They're the people that says things like you must do this, you must never do this, you always do this. Why don't you do this? You should know better than that, because they believe that they're right. Their concern is just for themselves. Their concern is for what they want. Their concern is to pass their opinion and actually to enforce their opinion, to enforce their way. Then we have the accommodators. They are people that are high on empathy and low on assertiveness. So they are more concerned for the relationship than for themselves, for their own need. They put the opinions, the needs, and the feelings of their spouse ahead of their own. They are people that they tend to be polite, they're easy to get along with, they're non-judgmental, they're very self-aware, actually more self-aware than the dominators. And during conflict, they are the people that will defer to their spouses. They give in, they go along, they forget their own feelings and wants. They, rather than getting them out in the open, they keep quiet on their own feelings and their opinions. They're more likely to be silent rather than to express themselves. They don't want to offend their spouses. They just want peace. They want them to be happy. They are nice people. They are nice to their spouses. They say things like, "What do you want? I just want you to be happy. Oh, don't worry about me. It's fine. Is that okay? Is that what you want? Is that how it should be?" But over time, I'm still going to look at the implications of all these different styles. Actually, somebody who's an accommodator, they might then start to act out in passive aggressive ways. They won't talk, but they are withholding or they are trying to get even. Now, the next style is the avoiders. Avoiders are low on both dimensions. So they are low on empathy, they are low on assertiveness, they are low in concern for themselves, and they are low in concern for the relationship. They are the ones that tend to minimize differences. They have avoidance behaviors like denying the situation, suppressing their feelings. They're the ones that will try to use humor, crack a joke, and hope that the conflict will go away. They minimize, they rationalize. Sometimes they act and pretend like nothing is wrong. It's business as usual. They like to distract. They like to minimize. They like to find escapes from situations because they don't like conflict. They particularly do not like to deal with strong emotions that comes with conflict. So that's why they pretend that everything is okay. They leave issues rather than facing it, and they hope that it will go away. And because they can't deal with emotional issues, they are usually not very deep. Their relationships are usually surface level. And when you have somebody like that in a marriage, it will be very difficult to sustain a deep emotional connection with their spouses. There are people that they don't disclose their true selves to other people. Everything is just surface level. They like to play safe. They are the people that are easygoing, they're independent, they're rational, they're detached. It's not a big deal. Oh, let's not make a mountain out of a molehill. Oh, I said I was sorry. What else do you want? Let's just let go, just leave it, just because they just don't want to face the issue. They don't want to deal the emotional side of things. Now we have the collaborators. And this is the better style of communication that we all, as married couples, should endeavor to develop. The collaborators are people that are good on both dimensions. They can assert their own point of view and needs, and they can show empathy for the view of their partner. In other words, they are good on both assertiveness and empathy. As married couples, we should all aim to develop our communication skills so that we're assertive enough to assert our own perspectives, our needs, our feelings, but to do it in a non-dominant or controlling way. And likewise, we can be sensitive to the perspective, needs, and feelings of our partners and give them space to express themselves fully. Because if we understand this balance, it's the essence of good communication and a healthy relationship. As a collaborator, there are people that will say things like, well, this is my point of view. How do you see it? What's important to you? Are you saying, is this what I'm hearing? How can I support you? How can we move forward? They are open about their needs. When they're hurt, they're able to say. And when they've hurt their partners, well, they're able to say. They are not people that will try and minimize or defend or argue their way out of situations. And becoming aware of our own communication style is very, very important, because that is the only way that we can improve on and deepen our communication with our spouses. What is your style? How do you communicate? What's your native style? Are you a dominator? Are you an accommodator? Are you an avoider? Or are you good at collaborating? Because all the different styles of communication that we have, they have consequences in our relationships. Let's say there are two dominators in a relationship. Every conflict will always escalate because they're both selfish. Their concern is for themselves, not for the other person, not for the relationship. And neither of them will back down. And if they don't learn to improve on or change their communication styles, then that relationship is going nowhere. In fact, that relationship will not last. And then if we look at a dominator versus an accommodator, a dominator, of course, is more concerned for themselves, whereas an accommodator is on the extreme end, where their concern is more for their spouse and for the relationship. And like I said earlier on, as an accommodator, they can be resentment can build over time because the dominator continues to have their way. The accommodator would then can become passive aggressive because they want to get even. They're not happy, even though they're not speaking up. They're not talking about you. They're not openly talking about their needs and their feelings and expressing it when they're hurt. So over time, resentment can build in that relationship, and that relationship is not going to work if both of them are not trying to improve on how they communicate. And if you have a collaborator versus an avoider, that can bring a lot of struggle because the collaborator is trying to say, look, let's collaborate, let's talk, let's decide, this is how I'm feeling. But the avoider is constantly trying to deflect, is trying to avoid, looking for how to escape because they don't want to face the emotions. They don't want to face, they don't like confrontation. They just do not want to face the situation. And if you are a collaborator is dealing with an avoider, they will constantly be frustrated because while they are trying to resolve issues, the avoider is trying to minimize it. And if we have a collaborator and a dominator, again, that will bring issues because the dominator is trying to assert their own need, is trying to say it's either my way or my highway. And the collaborator is saying, look, let's sit down, let's reason together. How do you feel? So if as married couples we are not aware, then we will not be able to improve. It's important that we get to the point where we are balanced in how we communicate, that we communicate with concern, not just for ourselves, but for the relationship. And that should be our aim. In my next video, hopefully, I'll be looking at how we can actually improve on our communication so that we can have a better relationship. God bless you.